Hello, hello. My story, very normal people. Welcome back in our show. All of you that you have been following us every time that we have a new guest in our show. But today we don't have a new guest. We have an author that she has been here before. Now she will introduce herself for the new audience that we have. Please, Jane, can you tell us who you are and something about yourself?
Thanks, author. It's so great to be back on here because it makes me feel like I'm a very normal person. Very happy to be here. Last time I was on here, I was talking about the first series of books that I had written, and this time I'll be talking about a second series. I write supernatural thrillers and urban fantasy, and I write full time from my home on a teeny weeny island in the Pacific Northwest off of Canada's west coast.
So, uh, can you tell us something that I'll say something new before we go to the book? Something that happened during this time that you haven't, we haven't, let's say, before you arrived to the show again. So, something that happened.
Something,
Yeah,
something's happened.
yeah.
Well, let me see. I think about 2 years it's been in that time. I have taken up a volunteer role on my island, which is something that I had never done before. So I'm currently the president of our activity center, which is a central building in the downtown of our little island. And it has a gymnasium, a stage, a fitness center, a commercial kitchen, a lounge, and an office, and it's a volunteer board of people that look after it. And so I've been helping to look after it now for almost 3 years, and that has been a really good experience. And it certainly made me get to know a lot more of my community here on Denman Island. So that's new.
So, can you remember me? Can you remember us? How many people are in the island?
There are 1,300 as of the last census that we've got access to. So 1,300. It's gone up from the 1,100 I used to quote. And we're ferry bound, so it's a little ferry. It doesn't take long to get to the other side. You can see it from the island, but you're still bound by that ferry. So you have to, you can only get on and off every hour or so, and not during the night. Just from 6 until 10 or so.
Okay. Now we'll go to the series, that second series you say. So, have you used? I'll start with this one. Uh, have you used something that is in the island in this in the book? Let's say something that happened to you this time that I'll say like got like a picture, something physical that you have around there that you used in the book.
Uh,
Or
Not well. Other than the book itself, it's based on an NBC show that people may be familiar with. Not based on, but inspired by.
Mhm.
And that was the show that was called Blind Spot, and it starred Jamie Alexander. And the very opening scene of that program is what sparked my imagination for this series. And that was Times Square being cleared out of people. It was the middle of the night. There was a duffel bag that had been dumped there, and a bomb tech in his big bomb tech equipment, was waddling over to the bag and had the Geiger counter out. And then you see the bag start to be unzipped from the inside, and out pops Jamie Alexander, and she's tattooed from the neck down. And she doesn't know who she is or how she got these marks or anything about it. And I thought, what an interesting concept to have to live through life with markings that aren't of your choosing. And so that's kind of where the seed of the story started. And then, of course, I have built it out into 2 books now. And you asked about if there was something about this place where I live. There is. Part of the activity center where I am volunteering, there is a museum as part of this building. And so I have put some pivotal scenes in a museum, and I've even used some of the artifacts. I reference some of the artifacts that we have in our museum in that book. So it's definitely got some Denman Island in it.
It's good. So, tell us now a little bit uh, for the second, let's say, uh, the second part of the books that you're for this
Okay.
this time.
So the new series is called Dark Dream series, and I believe at this point there's going to be 3 books, but I'm not very good at the math on these series things. The first book is called Bloodmark, and in that book we're introduced to Jane Walker, and she is from the wrong side of the tracks. She was abandoned at birth. She has a string of blood red birthmarks that strap around her body, including a prominent one on her face. And those marks have pretty much defined her life because it's so obvious, and when people see her, they're repulsed by it. And she hides from the public, and she's been bullied. She has a very good friend, and they defend one another to the teeth. And so when she's about 25 years old, the first of those birthmarks, because it's a chain, the one at the bottom, disappears. And she's thrilled because she thinks, wow, maybe they'll all go away. But then she learns that the marks aren't in fact birthmarks. She learns this when she is delivering flowers to a professor out at the university here in British Columbia. And the professor recognizes the mark on the back of her hand and points to a print on the wall that he's got of that mark. And all of a sudden she becomes aware that that mark is not unique. And it's actually not a birthmark. It's a blood mark that protects her. Somebody put it on her to protect her from someone or something, but she doesn't know who put it there or why. So in the first book, she's got to figure out who she's being protected from before the last mark disappears. That's the whole first book. And in the second book, it carries on from the first book. And in the first book, she made a terrible mistake that affected a lot of people's lives. And in the second book, she has to live with that mistake. And the only thing that is kind of keeping her a little bit on the positive side is that there's one person, one man who may have benefited from the mistake that she made. And so in the second book,
can you explain a bit what was the mistake that she made?
I will tell you this mistake. She changed history inadvertently. She changed something in the past that impacted an entire family, 2 families actually. And one person might have benefited from that change that she accidentally caused to create. And she finds the man in the second book, very early on in the second book, in the first chapter of the second book. She finds the man and she's crushed because she learns that this man isn't the nice man he used to be. He's in fact now embedded in a drug gang, and he has killed people. So he's a gangbanger. She's very unhappy that she has caused this as well. And then she learns that he's actually after her boyfriend, which is the only boyfriend she's ever had. And she's terrified for him. She wants to warn him, but before she can warn him, she goes into a dream state and she can't get out of it. It's like she's comatose and she cannot get out of that dream in order to warn him. So that's the whole idea of the second book in the series. And that second book is called Ghostmark.
So you have a happy end or so-so end?
I would say it has a happy end, but I wouldn't say it's not a romance. And it's not a cozy in any stretch of the imagination. It's gritty, it's dark. There are dark adult themes in these books. And that little bit of time slip that happens is disturbing. So in the end, she's not dead, obviously, because there's another book going to come out. But it's not, I wouldn't recommend it as a happy story. It's a thriller that keeps you on the edge and always wondering.
So, how long? So this is. When was the second book published? Let's say
last week, November 1st. Yeah, it came out on November 1st. Yeah, it's really fresh. The first book was out October of last year, of 2021, and that first book has received a number of awards, which I was very pleased about. It's really the first book that I have submitted for awards, so I was kind of nervous that it wouldn't do well, but it has received a Global Book Award, a Silver Golden Globe Award. It received honorable mentions, and it was a finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award and the Wishing Shelf Book Award and the Chanticleer Book Award. It's also been a finalist for the Page Turner, and I know I'm forgetting a number of other ones, but it was just such a relief to know that, because the first series of books was written first person perspective from one character. And this series, I took a different direction entirely. It's written in the third person perspective from 3 different characters' perspectives. So it was quite a change from the way I was writing my first books. And it was just a nice, to get these awards was a nice seal that, oh, you're doing it okay. You're doing all right.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear that. So let's say that, as we usually know, you try to convey a message there, right? So what will be the message that a reader will find there? At least according to you. Now, what they will find is another story. You know that.
That's so true. It's very subjective. And it's interesting. I didn't really have a message or, something that people would take away other than to be entertained. But it was really clear after I had written the first book that there is a big message there. And that message is not to judge people by what they look like or what they can afford to look like, because what they look like is not who they are. So in this book, there are some very well-heeled individuals who are very good looking, and they're the bad people. And there are very poor people who are disfigured in the book that are the good people. So that was something that I only knew in hindsight that I was conveying in the book. And of course, when I discovered that that was a really key component, I went back in and emphasized those things. So there's a madam in the book, and I went back and made sure that every scene where she shows up, she's in pristine white or cream, and she's always not a hair out of place, and perfect makeup and nails and that kind of thing. And where there are disadvantaged people, I go the extra mile. They've got lousy cars that are falling apart, and they live in horrible neighborhoods. I mean, they already were, but I just made it a little bit worse.
It's a very good message, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny because in this business, of course, it's always a joke. You don't judge a book by its cover, because everyone judges a book by its cover. But in the story, it really is. You can't tell, and you need to double check your assumptions. People aren't good because of what they look like.
But everybody talks about that, but everybody has that. It's like
Yes.
everybody, they look at you like, okay. So
Yeah.
I like one of the, I think Jim Rohn says that, and he said, okay, you don't care. Don't even think for others what they will think. I mean, you cannot control their mind, but it's good for you to look good. It's like you give them. So, sorry. Uh, always in writing. So, let's say in the second, you have changed from the first to the third pronounce, right?
Yeah.
You said that. Something else that you have changed in the second series?
I kept the setting because I like the Pacific Northwest and Vancouver in particular. I kept that setting. The characters are so much different, and I had to consciously make them different because I was so ingrained in the characters, having written so many books in that first series, that it was difficult to make a break, which is why they are so different. I thought it would be easier for me if, they're physically different, they look physically different, they're different age and different socioeconomic and educational backgrounds, so that I was able to separate that a little bit more. But primarily the reason why I did the big break was, I didn't want those characters to look like these characters, but I also wanted a challenge. You get it's not a rut. I love writing those other books, but you do get into a rhythm of who those people are. You know them so well. And so getting to know a new set of characters has been a lot of fun. It's they hang out in different places. They don't have the money the other characters had, so they're not on yachts and doing fancy restaurants and stuff. So it was really interesting to explore a different side and different characters. I love that about being a writer. Like you control everything. You control their thoughts and what comes out of their mouth and where they shop. It's fabulous. I love it.
You are the god.
Goddess.
In this case,
Goddess.
the goddess.
That's right. The Lordess over my stories. Yes. A puppet master. I like that too. What's really fun is, in real life, when you're having an argument with someone, no matter who it is, I never, ever think of that exact retort, that perfect comeback line that never comes out of my mouth in the heat of the moment. But a day later, I got the perfect one. So when you're writing, you have that opportunity. When you're having that writing the argument, I love writing dialogue for arguments because you can come up with that perfect comeback line. You have all the time in the world to do it. Very powerful.
Yeah. I have noticed that me too. It happened to me too, especially when I was young. When people say something to me, and I was saying I didn't like it. It was like somebody was bullying me using a word. I say always to come back something, and the next day they came to me with that nickname, and I just had an answer. They couldn't use it anymore.
True. I bet you that's the same case with everyone. I think you have to be pretty witty to be able to pull off a comeback really fast.
Yeah, not everybody has the ting ting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it was so good to have you, but so before, because of the time, we have a short time. Would you like to share something else before, apart from people to come and get your books and all this stuff?
Well, one of the fun things about presenting books and new books is that on my website, I have an opportunity to download the first chapters of all of my books. So you don't have to invest if you don't want to. And you also have an opportunity there to learn a little bit more about me and where I live. And I have a blog there that I put out about once a month where I talk about, what's going on across the road kind of thing. So if anyone wants to know anything more about me and what I'm up to, they can find it all through jpmcleanauthor.com.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate, and I hope not to be 2 years to to have you again in our show.
Oh, I'd love to come back, author, anytime.
Yes.
I better get writing quickly though if I'm going to be on next year.
and I wish for the last book that you have now is like, let it be all the rewards that exist. Let them let them be around your book.
Yes. Let's hope. Thank you. I'll put that one in the bank.